Welcome to the Back to Brick Property Podcast. I'm your host, David Lamb. On this podcast, we'll be stripping property investors and business people alike back to brick to find out how their journey can help you on your journey.
This podcast is brought to you by Orange Sales and Lettings. If you know someone that is looking to sell or let a home, please get in touch. Referral fees are available. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Back to Brick Property Show, sponsored by Orange Sales and Lettings, the Northeast's property experts. I am your host, David Lamb. Today we have a good friend of mine, Jake Thompson, on the show. Jake is a property investor here in the Northeast and is making massive strides using strategies such as buy-to-let, SAs and HMOs. Welcome, Jake. How are you, pal?
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me. Tiny bit nervous for the first podcast, but...
Well, we've talked about it for long enough now, haven't we?
I know. I had to do it at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And your journey is a great one. You know, even before I knew you, I used to take note of your Instagram page because your video edit was really good, I thought. But also the stuff you were doing was, you came across very genuine. Yeah, there's a lot of people on Instagram and the likes that the videos look flashy, but they're not really showing you anything they've done. Whereas you are literally on site saying, right, we've done this, and I knew the streets where you were doing it. I was like, bastard, he bought that out.
I remember when I first seen your Instagram, I was like, does he own half of Billingham? I was like, I own this one, I own this. I was like, who's this guy?
You got the other half, yeah. So it was good to watch, really good to watch. I'm not just saying that. So obviously I know you quite well these days, but for those that don't, mate, who's Jake Thompson? How did life begin?
So it began, I grew up in a place called Yarm. You'll obviously know it, but if you're not from around here, it's only a tiny little place.
Lovely little town, isn't it?
Yeah, really nice. Grew up with my mum, dad and sister. Really, really close family. Since being a kid, like, I was the kid, probably a lot of you guessed, but the kid who sold sweets in school to make money. Yeah. I've never actually... So I went through school, done all right in school. Never actually had a job that was like a waiter or paper round or anything like that. How I made my money during school was, my dad bought me a motorbike when I was 5, and then we upgraded and whatever. And then when I got to about 12, he bought me a quad as well. And the quad was a bit battered, and I was a bit like, do you know what I mean? Like, you could have done me better. And anyway, I stripped it down. Used it for 6 months, stripped it down, painted the frame, put new plastics on, all new bolts, only spent 100 quid on it and sold it and made £600 profit for what my dad bought it for. He let me keep it.
That was your first flip?
And that was my first, yeah. And I was about 13. I was like, I've just, like, to make 500 quid at 13-year-old, like, when everyone was making a tenner a week, I was like, bloody hell. So then I went and bought, normally people had, similar to houses, normally people would look and, like, all my mates were like, who had motorbikes, I wanted the shiniest with the newest decals and everything, and I was like, this looks battered, I want this one. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had solid engine and everything, but didn't look pretty. So again, I'd done the same again, bought it, used it for a year, put new plastics on it, new decals, sold it and made a profit. And then when I left school, and I just wanted to do I wanted to get paid straight away. I didn't want to go to college, so done an apprenticeship, and I applied for NETA training school. And literally, they're like, what trade do you want? And I was like, which is the highest paid? Like, do you know, when you leave school, I was like, which is the highest paid? They're like, with your grades, you can sort of do any. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, electrical, I'll do that. Started it, really enjoyed it. It was a good wage for a 17-year-old. And I knew I always wanted to get the property. And I knew, like, on the wage I was on, by the time I was 18, I could get a cheapish property as an apprentice. I knew my parents had put some money into an account for me to go to university, but I took the apprenticeship route knowing that I could still go to uni but not have to pay, do you know what I mean, the company might pay. Yeah. So I used a bit of that money, got towards coming up to 19, I was still about 18 and a half, and I put an offer in on my first property in Billingham. Really excited. It was a repossession, so the offer went to public notice. And like, for a first one, it's a bit risky. And someone actually offered higher. And the solicitor had been recommended. Obviously, I've maybe skipped a bit to how I got to the property and the solicitor and everything.
We'll come back.
And they basically said they think it's a fake offer to try and get more money. Now I've already paid for searches. And she was like, none of my clients will dare risk it. They want me to go up $2,000. Basically, I'd offered 60. They said someone offered 61. Well, I got 62. And the solicitor was like, I have this all the time and no one dares. They always don't want to lose the property. And I was like, no, I'm sticking at 60. And they were like, oh, we're staying with you. And I was like, knew it was a fake offer. And so did the solicitor.
Oh, brilliant.
So I got that, done it up, all the work basically myself, because I was doing an electrical apprenticeship. I was already in like year 2, about to start year 3. Done most of the work myself. My dad was a plumber. He's self-employed gas engineer. So he done all the boiler for dad rates. It was free.
Brilliant.
We got plasterers in and stuff like that. I got my mate who was a joiner to help fit the kitchen, but otherwise I fitted it. And honestly, I look and like we'd done a full refurb for about $8,000. I was like, you couldn't
You
even
do some of mine.
Yeah, I was like, I look now and I was like, that was in 2013. And then what I'd done was actually put that on the market to flip it. Even though obviously you shouldn't have, because I bought on a mortgage, but because I'd done the work myself whilst working full time, it took long enough to do it. I think I was all in. Again, there was no extra stamp duty back then. Do you know what I mean? There was none of these fees.
It was easy, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I was all in for like, still had legals obviously, but again, they were so cheap. I was all in for about just over 70 with the agent's fee as well to sell it. Put it up for 85, got an offer in 83.5, accepted it, and I was like 18-year-old about to make my yearly wage.
Mental.
Do you know what I mean? I think I was on about 12 or 13 grand as an apprentice. I was like, I'm going to make that just off this flip. Anyway, after about 4 or 5 weeks, it fell through. I can't remember why the buyers pulled out. Some reason about they couldn't get the mortgage they needed. Do you know what I mean? They didn't have enough of a deposit and they wouldn't lend them. It didn't get downvalued, but I can't remember at the time. So anyway, I think my dad, I don't know what clicked. Someone's like, why don't you just keep it? Your profit's in there, but you can get monthly income from it. So I looked and I spoke to my mortgage advisor. She was like, you can get consent to let. So you don't have to remortgage and pay the fee. So I was like, right, okay. So I got consent to let. And I remember, maybe I was a bit tight, but I also wanted to learn. I used something similar. It's called UPAD. It was similar to Open Rent. So it put it on Rightmove and everything for you for like 50 quid. And I went and done the viewings myself. Done the viewings, asked the tenants all these questions. Chose the tenant. The tenant then come on the day to sign. So UPAD done this like sign up tenancy. So they'd give you the tenancy agreement, tell you didn't even need protected deposits back then. Like you'll know, like it was absolutely mad to think that you could have had a portfolio and held everyone's deposit. And
I know people that did.
Yeah,
some people actually still do.
That's what do they? That's what I mean. To me, I'd rather have that money in the DPS. And it's not mine. It's not yours, is it? You don't want it. So anyway, from that, I had I knew they'd signed it up properly with a tenancy agreement. Do you know what I mean? I knew everything. I'd done an inventory, done everything like that. And I remember the woman I let it to was a single parent. She only had a 3-year-old kid who was about to start school around the corner. I thought, ideal. She's not going to want to move quick. And she come to sign up and she was like, oh, so like, do we deal with the manager and agent or do you give us the landlord's contact details? I was like, I am the landlord. She was like, how old are you? I was like, 19. She was like, you're my landlord. And then she was with a mum who was like 50 odd and they were looking at me. They were like, is this kid taking the mick? I was like, honestly, like just, she was like, I mean, it looks professional. You seem to know what you're doing. I was like, yeah, I do. I thought, do you know what I mean? They've obviously given me all the documents. Anyway, she actually only stayed 2 years and left. And when she left, she was about 28, 29. She'd rented for her and she was 18. She was like, honestly, you're the best landlord I've had. She was like, if the boiler had an issue, my dad was straight round. Any issues, like, but I was like, it's your home. You treat it as your home, but it's my house. It's my investment. If you have a leak and I don't fix it, it's only going to cost me long term.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I was already in that mindset of like, it's still my house. I'm not going to be one of these landlords who.
So you had a very old head on your shoulders then, even at that age. Because if we rewind a little bit back to the quad bike thing, you're 13.
Yeah.
You'd spotted a business opportunity. You're obviously quite naturally good with your hands because, you know, I, even today I still couldn't do up a quad bike. Not a chance. So if you're doing that at 13, there was obviously a natural ability.
Yeah, I think
you're obviously quite practical.
Yeah, I always loved. I think that's why I went electrical as well and went the apprenticeship route. Like, to be honest, in school, like I was in one of the highest set in maths. I found maths quite easy. Like they'd done my GCSEs a year early, so everyone was like, the teachers and everyone was pushing me towards like the full academic route, and I was like, it's not what I want. I don't enjoy it. And my granddad, so my dad's from New Zealand, and my granddad builds cars. just as a hobby.
Right, okay.
And my dad was obviously a plumber, and I used to see him, like, he built our ensuite at home, you know, like an extra ensuite in my sister's bedroom, and I always thought it was really cool. So, like, I don't know, I just always tinkered with stuff. And then as a hobby, when I was a teenager, I done go-karting, like, all around the country. I was lucky enough, obviously, for my parents to fund that. And it was just always tinkering and just taking stuff apart and putting it back together. So, yeah, I think it's probably from, like, my granddad. I haven't met my granddad that many times. He's in New Zealand, but probably from seeing my dad.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, so just surrounding yourself, being surrounded by that, I should say, at a young age, and then obviously genetically, you're obviously quite gifted practically. So your dad, he said he's a gas engineer, obviously, I know that. Is he running that as a business, or is he just like a sole trader type of thing? I'm trying to, where does the entrepreneurial spirit that you've got come from?
So my mum says it's from my granddad. Now, my English granddad, unfortunately, I never met. He died before I was born. But I think deep down, this is where the property come from, and me, do you know what I mean? Thinking, so he'd passed away, my mum was about 18. So like 10 years so before I was born. He was a builder, and he'd like built full streets, built houses. He'd done ground up developments on land, and that had basically set my gran up for life. She never had to work. She owned some commercial property, which my family's still doing, Norton High Street.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I probably subconsciously from being a kid, I was like, why is my gran never going to work? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know obviously they're older, they retire anyway. My mum was like, no, she's never worked. Like, I was like, but how? And it was obviously the income from property.
Wow.
And then back to my dad. My dad went self-employed, and at one point, I think, not massive, but he had 3 or 4 vans on the road, you know, like...
Did your dad ever get into property as well?
So funnily enough, I think he did, and he lost money, and then it was just like, nah.
Did he?
Yeah, he bought one in Middlesbrough. Do you know what? I haven't actually asked him the full story. But he bought one in Middlesbrough. It was a bit of a dive. Like, I think they bought it cash. And it was just, I think this was before he was a plumber as well, because he used to be like an area manager of supermarkets. So this was before he went into that.
Yeah.
So he probably couldn't have done as much of the work. And I don't know what happened, but my mum was like, I mean, your dad lost money on that property. So they lost money, whatever happened. Burned. Yeah. And I think that put him off property.
It's amazing how many times you hear that, isn't it? Like, people just do one property. I guess like anything in life, but they do one property. And I think it's critical how, if that first property goes well, you're pretty much set up for life, aren't you? Like, this is the thing for me.
Yeah.
But if you do get burnt and lose what is a relatively large amount of money at the time, it would sort of dull that.
Yeah, to
experience.
be fair, how you put it like that, if my first flip, or the one I kept in the end, lost money, I might have been like, actually, property's not, you know what I mean? It's not where it's set up to be, it's not for me.
Yeah, but then I see, on the other side of that, I see so many tradesmen that are making really good money. They're obviously very good at their trade, but they've got a great network of other trades as well, and they're not in property, and I'm just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You could cut your refurb costs in half.
Yeah.
Like, just get into property, and they're just like, oh, no, it's not for me. I'm like, how is it not for you? You're doing it for everyone else. Just do it for yourself.
Do it for yourself, yeah. To be honest, I've utilised my dad. Like, without my mum, like, all of them would be so helpful. Like, the first few, my sister would come and paint. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't paying a decorator back then. Because you would, like, you're trying to save as much as you can on refurb. I'd still... Now, obviously, I say to my dad, you charge me what you're happy with. I don't want, do you know what I mean? Like, sub rates. He still will always be...
24-hour call out.
Yeah. But, like, he's... I've utilised all of his... From the start, from the first one, he had the plasterers, because obviously he used plasterers. He had the tiler. Yeah. So from then, they've then met me, and I've built relationships with them. And
are you still using them?
Not the original ones. You probably know how it is, like 10 or 12 years. It tends to be there's some that stick around, but every few years it tends to be people either get too big, go too expensive, or start to be a bit complacent to think you're just going to give them work. And then, like, when you pull them up and you're like, look at your first 5 jobs, and now you're starting. Yeah, prices start to creep up, just quite subtly, don't they? Yeah. And then, you almost give them too much work, and they think, oh well, I can cut corners here. And your bath starts leaking because your plumber's took a shortcut or whatever. So. Yeah, I went through that myself, and I always, where I am now, I always have 3 or 4 of each trade. Yeah, that's and I try and spread the work around. Yeah, and they all know I do it. Do they? I think that works. Yeah, it keeps them on the toes. Yeah, it's a good point actually, because I'm the same. I have like 3 or 4 of each trade that I use, but I don't always tell them. But obviously they'll see my Instagram and like, well, we didn't even get to price for that job. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So they'll know. That's a healthy thing. I think it is. Maybe just have one gas fitter though, if he's your dad. But you might start asking questions.
But yeah, I think that's a good tactic. You want to, you know, it's if someone just takes for granted that you're going to give them all the plumbing or all the plastering, it's human nature. They're going to start cutting corners, aren't they? So have you still got that first property then?
I have, yeah. So I still manage that myself. And I don't know, like, I'll probably want to touch on the fact that I put it on a repayment. My first, I basically...
I did my first couple, yeah.
Yeah, so I bought that one. Then when I was 20, I'd saved up to buy another and thought, I don't know if I'll buy another. Then I never touched the rent. Then when I was like another 2 years later, I bought another, still living at home. And then another couple of years later, I bought another. And I was like, as an 18-year-old me, my thoughts were repayment, enough to cash flow and cover any bills and everything like that. I'd still make like 200 or 300, but they were all going to be paid off by the time I was 44.
Yeah.
And I was like, a Lamborghini Huracan or whatever it was at the time was like 180 grand. I was like, if I have 3 houses and they're only 60 and they only stay the same value, but they're all worth 80 now, I was like, I can just sell 2 of them when I'm 44 and I'll have my lamp. Do you know what I mean? That's how I thought. Yeah, I thought I enjoyed my job at the time.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, this is like foolproof. Like, it's literally, there's no, even if the properties don't go up in value, which they're going to, like, I'm going to be able to have paid off houses. Do you know what I mean?
And there was nothing wrong with your logic there, to be fair.
No, I guess, yeah.
Your way of thinking changes as you educate yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But essentially, very similar to my logic when I first started buying properties, the same. I just thought, pay them down, first 2 or 3, pay them down. By the time they're paid off, I'm going to be rich.
Yeah.
Because that 60 grand that you're paying off in the house when you're 18 and 19, which is when I started, 60 grand's a huge amount of money.
Yeah,
it's still a lot of money now, but you know, it's a huge amount of money. You think, right, I'm rich. I'll just pay these houses off. The tenants will pay them off for me.
Yeah, that's what. I'm rich.
So you didn't do any property training, did you?
No, I'd probably have built a portfolio a bit faster, but maybe not had as much equity to go full time and do what I can now if I'd have had training, because I didn't know about BRR. Like we just discussed, I didn't put any on interest only. I want to pay them down. When the mortgage broker at the time as well, it was like 1.8% mortgages, so it made sense to pay them off, because like that was still money. Probably it was probably cheaper then than it is now in interest only. Do you know, 5%?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was like, I'm still cash flowing well. Why would I? Like, I can't remember what it was, and I was overpaying one of them. It was a 20-year mortgage, and they said if you overpay £70, you knock 4 years off it. You know, I was like, £70 a month for 4 years. Like, I was like 100%. So I was overpaying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I still had a wage, so you weren't, like, probably similar to yourself, you're not that bothered about the extra 50 or 100 quid a month.
No, and that's the way we're taught. That's the way we're educated in school. That debt's bad, isn't it? So any kind of debt, be it credit cards, cars, mortgages, especially being from the northeast, I find, or the north at least, like, it's drilled into you to never have debt.
Never have it. Yeah.
Like, my mum used to go mad with me if I'd even look at getting anything from like Next catalogue as a kid or whatever, because debt was like the worst thing ever. And my mum and dad were actively trying to pay their mortgage down and struggling with it, but that was their aim. I remember them talking about paying the mortgage down all the time. So you hit sort of early adulthood and you're in that mindset of get rid of your debt as soon as possible. So how and when was that light bulb moment for you?
Exactly what you just said, and I agree with, because I was always the same. Even now, I'm a bit like, my mum and my family were like, never get a car on finance, never get this debt, and like I'd never had car finance. I still haven't, just because I was like, I just built up slowly. So like, get a car for 2,000, then when you keep that, and then build it up and get one for 4, then 6, then 11. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I'd never wanted that debt. So. God, I've even forgot what your question was then.
So when was the light bulb moment? You're amassing. We've got far enough down the journey now where you've amassed sort of 3 or 4 properties. You're paying them off. At what point did you start to sort of self-educate, if you like? When did you start to realise, you know, I should be maybe going interest only. I could maybe grow a bit quicker if I do that.
I'd say it was only probably 2 years ago.
Oh, wow, okay.
I joined a network, a property network, because I thought, like, I should be doing more with this property thing. Do you know what I mean? I think I had 5 at the time, and I was like, there must be more to this. Maybe come across some Instagrams and thought, or I can't remember what happened, but I joined a network, and wasn't expensive or anything. To me, that was like 50 or 60 quid a month. Was like, that was my training. Do you know what I mean? I've never paid.
Was it
for
one of the
expensive
well-known
course.
networks?
Yeah, it's Prosperity.
Ah, right. Okay.
Really good network. I'm still in it.
Yeah,
their events. And I joined that, and I jumped on a few of the calls. This was before I'd even set my Instagram. I decided I want to be full-time in property. I just had a small portfolio. And then people were going on about BRRs, they were going on about like angels. And I'd never even heard of an angel, and they were like 10%. And then I was like, look at all this equity I have in all these houses. I can get that at 4%. Like, why would I pay an angel 10? And then I almost just like, I think I was on a call and it was like deal diaries and it was showing someone else's deal. And they'd remortgaged their own house. And then I'd done a big refurb on my own house, but not done anything with it. I just added the value. And I could just go on my app. And it already had increased the value anyway, because it said I bought it like, below what it was worth.
Yeah.
And it was like, you can just pull out like 49,500 without speaking to anyone or anything.
Really?
And I was just like, literally just two buttons, I've got that. Like, so literally I did. Well, first I thought, what can I do with that money? Do you know what I mean? I don't want to just get that money and be like, what can I do? So I worked out it was going to add like £250 to my monthly payment. I thought, right, if I can do a BRR, leave 15 to 20,000 in, but that cash flow is 300. I'm covering the extra of what my mortgage is, but I've still got 30,000 to go with, and another asset going up in value.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was like, right, this makes sense. But I didn't want to like over leverage, so I still only took it to like, I don't even think it was 75 or 80% like loan to value. And then I looked across my portfolio and it happens that 2 were due for a refinance. So them 2, I thought, right, my own house and them 2, I can pull a nice chunk out to go with now. And then done that basically. And then that was only the start of last year. That's when I was like, right, I've seen people who have less money than this manage to go full time. I already have a portfolio. I had a good job. At the time, I was
Actually, you really enjoyed your job, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Even now, like people moan about and like they want to get out of the 9 to 5, and I enjoyed it, but I knew it wasn't what I want to do.
Yeah.
I started, so for the last 2 years I worked, so I'd done electrical, just a brief background, then went to uni part-time, done a degree in electrical engineering, enjoyed that, then got a job in pharmaceuticals, really enjoyed that, got promoted to senior, but all this time I was always doing something in my spare time, do you know, like, not in my time at work, sorry, not my spare time, but I was on shifts, so that's why I was doing my own refurbs, because I was doing 4 days on, 4 off, so I was like, I have 4 days off. And then before I went full-time property, I actually set up a dessert shop in Darlington.
Did you really? I didn't know that.
As I was leaving the pharmaceutical company before I went to Amazon, I had a month off and we set up a dessert shop, employed 3 staff, had my sister, my mum there. I made 10 different Galaxy milkshakes with all tiny different bits of ice cream to make sure it was like perfect. Knowing
that you eat 1,000 calories a day now, it's quite ironic
yeah, I know.
to hear that you had a dessert shop.
I know. I even think back now, but I'd done like that. I think that taught me a lot, like we closed it down. It was open a year in Darlington Indoor Market.
Right.
It was quite low risk because the rent was based on revenue.
Right, okay.
It was a high percentage of the revenue, but I thought if we're not making much money, we don't pay rent. It's not like fixed at $1,500 a month.
Low risk.
Yeah. Set that up, and I'd seen a lot of dessert shops, and I'd looked at the company's accounts, and they were doing really well, and I was like, this is like, do you know what I mean? This is the one. I'm going to be creams. I'm going to be bigger than creams, and like set up a brand logo. Even one of the, I wasn't there, but my mum was working. Rishi Sunak, when he was Prime Minister, visited the
did he really?
shop, yeah, because obviously he's around Darlow.
Yeah, yeah.
And to be honest, it done all right, and it was good, and it was like the staff was sound, but that was one of the hardest parts I learned. I'd never employed anyone before. Don't find decent
Some
staff.
important lessons there then,
Yeah. But anyway, a few changes happened over the year. They started charging for gas and electric, which they never. The car park changed. The footfall dropped a bit. The price of everything, because this was just after COVID. It was about 3 years ago we started. It was just during to after COVID.
Right.
The price of everything went up. Ice cream and everything, and we were like, how much can you charge for like a bubble waffle or do you know what I mean, stuff like that. So anyway, I looked at it. My sister was meant to take over all the admin side, but she just wanted to make the desserts. Do you know what I mean? Like she was good at making them, but like I was still working full time, and I was
running the business side,
running the business as well, and it was just getting a bit too much. And I just said, look, like she wouldn't know. Well, none of them apart from me would. If we took 1,500 on a Saturday, how much that's profit? As soon as we sold a bubble waffle, a can, I knew like that can's 60% markup, that's 50%, that's, do you know what I mean? Like I knew what would make the most and what we need to sell. Yeah. And it was just, I'd not stopped enjoying it, but we weren't making enough for the effort. Yeah. So we decided to and the lease couldn't renew, and you had to sign another 12 months, and we were just like, it's not worth it. So anyway, we closed that down, but I don't see that as a failure. A lot of people are like, oh.
No, definitely not.
But I was like, honestly,
Give
the
it a
amount I
go.
learned and enjoyed.
Exactly.
And that was the first, I'd never had a customer service facing role. I'd never, like, and I was like, I think 27, 28, serving like a bubble waffle to like this family. I was just like, you know what I mean? I'm not salesy. I've never done anything sales.
Yeah.
And it was just a bit mad, but it kind of like, it was scary, but it shows that, I don't know if, do you know what I mean? A lot of my mates were like, as if you had the balls to do that. And to me, I was just like, what was it?
I think it'll stand you in good stead, mate. And I'm sure there's a lot of very valuable lessons there.
Yeah,
you've given it a go, and everything happens for a reason, and it will stand you in good stead. That's for sure. And it's good that you had the awareness to know your profit margins on every item as well. Because how many people do you know that have got businesses that are just floating along this little river, and they're not getting management accounts done, they're not getting P&Ls, like they don't have a clue. They just almost enjoy what they're doing, and they see the cash coming in, but they don't know how much. They're just living life month to month. Yeah,
but there's so much like you could just make tiny tweaks. We changed ice cream supplier just because we spoke to another, and like it increased by like 8%. It might not sound much, but
huge
across a full week, you're 8% better margin. Like I think you need to know these fine details.
Yeah, for sure, mate. It's great that you had that awareness even then on your first sort of trading business. So just to go rewind again a little bit. So you've joined Prosperity as part of the network.
Yeah.
What you've done there is shown that you don't have to spend 25 grand on a property course. You've joined for, I think you said 60 quid a month.
I think it was 60 at the time, yeah.
And the events you're going to in person.
So I wasn't going to the events in person at first. I was just sitting on the calls on a Monday. I never put myself out there, never posted in it. I was just like taking in do you know what I mean? The knowledge.
But still, you're showing that you don't need to break the bank to educate yourself, do you?
Yeah.
I'm sure you were reading other books, knowing you as well. So you've done that. And I guess we looked upon paying our mortgages off in the early days, both of us, as a negative. But by the time you've joined Prosperity there, you're starting to immerse yourself in all this knowledge and create a network. But by doing what you've done by paying your mortgages down, you put yourself in an even stronger position to then educate yourself and then kick on.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, it's a massively positive thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can look at it both ways. But if I hadn't put them on repayment and done this slower way, I wouldn't have ever had all this equity to, do you know what I mean, to bounce me sort of higher into full time. But then, I guess there's no right or wrong way. But that does show you. I've met some people who've paid ridiculous money for courses, and it absolutely baffles me. And I think the information is out there. Like, even so, before I got my first HMO, I went to like a mastermind day. It was about £400, and like that was enough. Do you know what I mean? For me to give me, I already had all the basics of buy-to-let, and that was just enough to know Article 4, the commercial valuations, and like I just seen that as an investment myself. Like that could save me thousands, but it's not a 10 or 15 grand course.
Exactly.
And then from there, just speaking to people, like I think if you're genuine and you come across well, people know if you want to try and get something for them for free. Like if I messaged yourself, if I messaged, there's other people like locally. I remember before when my Instagram had like 200 followers, not many people take you serious. And I would literally be like, look, I'll offer you money for your time. I don't expect anything for free. Like, or say someone did give me some advice or some piece of information, I'd be like, if you want anything, like, do you know what I mean? Let me know.
Yeah.
And I think that comes across well. Like the amount of people, I didn't know anyone in property 18 months ago. And it's mad to think like I'd done a post a few months ago and think
I remember that,
the people that I've met, and it's just off social media. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, it's actually mental because I actually, when I joined Prosperity, I think it was off a book and it was saying, or a post, and someone was like, if you want to upgrade your life, like look who you surround yourself with. And I thought, no one I'm with is making any kind of, my friends are all spot on. They're all doing really well in the jobs. Yeah. They're all really managers, area managers, directors. Do you know what I mean? They're all, but they're not like the people I'm around with now, or as well as the property people are like, some of them making insane money. And it's just, even when I speak to my girlfriend, she's like, your mindset's almost changed a bit in the last, do you know what I mean? Just, it's like everything's possible. Yeah. Whereas before you'd be like 10 grand a month. No, like, I know. That's ridiculous. And then you like see someone who's, I'm making 30 grand a month. You're like, what? I know. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but when you're around them, it's like nothing's an issue.
No, and you meet those people that, you know, I met someone last year that was doing over 100 grand a year, a month, net through property.
Yeah, it's mental.
And I know he's genuine, and he's massive. You know him anyway. But I was just chatting to him, and I thought to myself, he looks nothing special.
Yeah.
Nothing he's saying is special.
Yeah.
He's just done what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But more of.
Yeah.
And for longer.
Yeah.
He's literally nothing special, and he'll openly say he's nothing special. And that just fills you with confidence, doesn't it? And you think, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, he's dealing with the same issues day to day that I am.
Yeah.
He didn't start with an inherited pot of cash or anything. So literally the sky's the limit.
I think, like you said as well, the most important thing, and the thing that propelled me the most in the last year, is getting around the right people or in the right networks. But like at first, I didn't want to pay the fee to get in the network, and I upgraded to go to the in-person events. Now, I've done a lot of free events. I've done a lot of networking the last year, and some of it, like, you will go to and sit there for a few hours. And I remember sat on a table, and it was like everyone there had no properties. They weren't interested in paying a sourcer, so I couldn't sell them any like services. They weren't interested in any project management, and I was almost like, that was a waste of a few hours. Do you know what I mean? So, but is it? Because
no, I don't think it is.
You never know what
you
never
know where conversation's going to lead. You go to a network event, you think, oh, this is crap. I've been here 2 hours. It's crap. I've got no value out of this.
Yeah.
And literally, as you're leaving the door, you might have one conversation with someone, and it gives you a little bit of knowledge or contact.
Yeah.
Or says, my friend is looking for your services, and then boom, the whole night was worth it.
Similar to that, if I hadn't gone to one in Birmingham, I think it was, and I was like, can I be bothered travelling that far, paying 50 quid? I genuinely only went because a lot of my mates who were from Manchester and in property, like, I get on really well with, they're all going. I thought, dress up in a suit, go. But like, I'm not expecting, do you know what I mean? I'm not expecting to learn or meet. I did actually meet a couple of people, but the guy sat next to me was on about a third-party legal charge on a bridging loan. As a deposit to use someone else's property or unencumbered property as a deposit.
Yes, yeah.
I was like, I'd never heard of it. And I was like, I'd not seen it in Prosperity, not seen it in any calls. Yeah, it's not common. He was like, oh yeah. He said, I've got my own house unencumbered. He said, and I didn't have enough cash to buy and refurb one. I didn't want development finance. He said, so what they'd done was that they used my property as collateral, except a charge against it, essentially collateral against a deposit.
Yeah.
And I was like, my mum's like got an unencumbered property, like, would she? And I knew she'd, if there's not much risk, I knew, well, there's always a bit of risk, but I knew like that my parents would do absolutely anything to help. Do you know what I mean? Like, they'd go and, if it meant cleaning before a tenant come at 9 o'clock at night, they'd go around and help clean, paint.
Amazing.
Like, I knew. I messaged my mum. I said, can we have a coffee? I'll explain it.
Yeah.
Before I'd even, yes, you can do it. I was like, but you don't even know the risks. And she had to go and get independent legal advice. So the solicitor was like, do you know about this? Like, she jokingly said, Jake put a gun to my head and said, if I don't, I'm stuck. And I was like, Mum, you can't joke to a solicitor like that. The solicitor was like,
recorded.
Yeah, the solicitor was like, oh no, this is, she was like, well, obviously I know. She was like, it's my son. I'm going to support him. Do you know what I mean? So that allowed me my latest deal, because a lot of people get development finance. Obviously, you need to. The builder I use, this is going on the HMO, really fast. I think development finance would have slowed him down, because like within the first week it was stripped and rewired, and they were working Saturdays, Sundays.
Been waiting for your next lump of money.
Next
drawdown.
Yeah, exactly. Every drawdown, he'd have probably been like, well, I'm going to hold the lads because I need. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't like that, but like, it's a risk.
No, but he would. He'll otherwise be exposing himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, well, if I have enough to pay all the refurb myself and there's none of that risk, but I don't have enough for the deposit, then I use my mum's property as a deposit. So then I spoke to the bridging lenders, and I was like, what about the retained interest as well? Like, can you cover that in there? So literally I put nothing in, including the interest. And they were like, yeah, you just pay. Obviously I paid my stamp duty, auction fee, and that was it to buy the property. Yeah. So I was like, oh. But not a lot of people, some people actually got a lot of messages about it. But then some people were like, I was even mentoring someone, they asked the parents to do the same. They're like, it's too risky. I'm not putting my house on the line.
Most parents would take that attitude, yeah.
They probably would, but then you'd understand this as well. And someone made more in property. Basically, I said, say I bought this property for 130. You're putting your own house on the line as a deposit to cover 25% of it. I said, but then if for whatever reason I default and they put this property back on the market, they don't just take yours, they put that back on the market, and then they're going to sell it all day long for 115, 120, easy. Yeah. So I was like, say that's worst case. So say we lost 15 grand. Are we really going to let them take your house like unencumbered in yarn for 15 grand. I said, I've got that for the refurb, so I just have to pay them and take the loss. I'd take the hit.
Yeah.
So I was like, really, there's not a big risk, because I thought even all day long, anyone to snap up for 100 when I've just paid 130 bidding against people. It's like the worst case is 30 grand plus some fees.
Exactly.
So I was like, really, the risk isn't.
Until you explain cover it with a credit card.
Yeah, the risk isn't your own house. They're not. They can't just.
No.
They don't want that. Why would they want the chew of trying to kick you out? And
it's just an extra
the
layer
legal
of security,
process,
isn't it? Yeah.
So, yeah, that again, that was from a networking event. If I hadn't gone and sat with that guy that night, and he hadn't told me that, I might not have got that deal. I might have thought it's out of my budget. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, and you've got that knowledge forever now, so you can use it again.
Yeah.
Just get your mum sweet. So you're at Prosperity, you learned about BRR and refinancing and using interest-only mortgages. I went through that process myself when living in Australia. I was buying houses for cash, didn't know anything. Sat in an oil rig, educating myself, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, reading all the Rob Moore books, Rob Dix. Had all this knowledge about refinancing. So when I got home from backpacking, I was just similar to the process you went through. It was like an amazing feeling, like, bloody hell, I can buy loads of property now. Like, it's mental. Yeah. So you went through that process. Is that when you started to realise that property could become a full-time sort of career?
Yeah.
Because you were enjoying your job anyway. You were doing property as a sideline. Is that when you thought, bloody hell, I could actually do this as a business?
Yeah, it was simultaneous. So what happened was I started Amazon as a senior technician. So I was on shifts, in charge of technicians, and within 6 months I got promoted to area manager. Actually, I've sourced my manager at the time. I've actually sourced the property for him since.
Have you? Bloody hell.
Really great guy. I'd started Amazon and they had to do an appraisal within 2 months, and they were like, I couldn't see it obviously, and he was like, I think this guy's going to get promoted within a year. And I was like, oh, I like it. You've seen it in me. But when I got promoted, I went back and looked at what he wrote because I had access to the manager's folder.
Brilliant.
And basically from there, I'd got promoted and I'd done the job for 6 months. And I thought, I like it, but I thought, I don't love it. And then I seen my manager's job again, and it was like 10 or 15 grand more, and he was basically giving his life. And I was like, is this what it's going to come down to? And that's when I thought, I'd always learned about BRRs, and I was like, right. I sat down, worked it all out, spoke to my parents. I was like, you know what, I think if I do X, Y, Z, I can hit this goal, I can do this. I think I'm going to give property a go full time. I think I'm going to leave work. And I'd seen sourcing. I didn't even know what sourcing was. Yeah. But I'd naturally source without realising. Do you know, like for friends or like family, I'm looking at buying this, think it's a good investment. No, absolutely terrible. Like, this one's way better. This is a refurb cost. I wasn't charging anything. I was just like, and they'd go and buy it. Oh, thanks, Jake. Do you know what I mean? Maybe get a pair of trainers. Like, oh, thanks for helping you guys.
Send them an invoice now.
Yeah, I should. So then I'd learnt about sourcing as well. Got in touch with some like people who were quite big in sourcing in the Northeast. I'd say I'd made friends with them. Signed up to, like, I went to a day course for them. And that was really the first time when I knew I was leaving my job in 2024. This was the start of 24. Set my Instagram, come up with a name, a logo, decided I was going to source and project manage because it just made sense, because I was already doing all of my own, all the contacts I had with my dad. So set that up. I already had a small portfolio. I had, I think, 5 at the time, but by the time I'd left work at the end of the year, like November time, I'd had more. So basically that 9 months, I bought a social housing deal. I traded a property at auction. I'd done 2 BRRs and I'd done a flip as well. I just thought, right, I'm going for it. Like, I know.
Is this with the money that you'd learnt to refinance out of your portfolio?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Obviously, the trade, the money comes straight back in, so I knew it wasn't like going that way. And the flip was actually a JV. So I'd done a JV flip back in 2019, but this was another one. So the ones I was keeping for myself, and the trade was my own money, but the flip was funded by an investor, basically.
And would you do that again? Did you have a good experience with that?
With the one for an investor, or the JV one in 2019?
The JV.
I would, yeah, purely because the investor just gave me the money. I was showing him, this is a kitchen design, this wasn't. Didn't
micromanage you? Or?
No, I wasn't bothered. I had every invoice in a spreadsheet, every like bank statement, everything. Just like, what will the profit be? Yeah. That was it. Do you know what I mean? So, and they were happy.
Type of JV partners.
Yeah. So they were happy. Went to go again. I'm literally that one sold like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm chomping at the bit to get another. They're happy to go again.
How easy do you find it to find flips? Everyone talks about doing flips on that, but I'll be honest, my personal experience, I think I've done 3 or 4 in my life, and I find them very difficult to find.
I fully agree. I think they're quite hard. Like, again, I'm very similar in sourcing as well. I'm very conservative with numbers. So if I send you a deal, or that deal I mentioned with the JV, I said it's going to be worth 175. At the end, we sold it for 186. So it's quite a big difference.
Yeah.
But there's people who'd be like, it's going to be worth 190 that, and look at the massive profit, and it sells for 186. You're like, still good, but I'd rather like say to the investor, you're going to get 5-6 grand more than same with every deal. Maybe that sometimes works against you because a deal might stack realistically, but I'm being a bit conservative maybe. But then,
no, I think it's the best way to be.
Do you want to risk it? Because honestly, I can't believe, even in prosperity, even properties I've viewed, someone's tried to flip it and they're losing money. I'm looking, I'm like, you paid 70 for this. It's now for sale for 90, 95, and you've easy, just by counting nowadays, stamp duty, legals, like you've lost money. There's no way.
Front costs are massive now, aren't they?
Yeah, so I'm
That's why I just think it's so difficult these days, because you want a good 25 to 30% profit on a flip for me.
Yeah.
And finding those deals now, I mean, it's such a competitive market, property now, and just finding deals that can justify.
And everyone wants flips.
Exactly.
Literally. So many investors message me, I don't want 300 quid on a buy-to-let, I want a flip.
Yeah, and I see people posting flip deals on LinkedIn and Instagram, and then it doesn't take long to look at the Rightmove sold comparables, and they're nowhere near, and just like,
or they're picking one
someone will be buying it.
Yeah, they're picking one that has an extension. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not,
yeah.
Whereas like,
yeah, they're never like for like, are they? But some people are obviously doing. Not everybody. Some people are making a success of it, I'm sure. But so you've done a lot of strategies, and you've done your buy-to-let, your BRRs, service accommodation. You've done very recently. How did you find that?
So I was actually going to flip that property.
That's right. Yeah.
And I thought it's.
Did it work out as a flip the numbers by the time you've done it?
Oh yeah, even another one again. I worked on 135 end price. I got this one through an agent I have a good relationship with before it didn't even go on the market, so no one could have bought it. So again, I think that's one of the main things. Like, but it's so hard. Like this agent, I've sold a couple through them. I say obviously, if you give me it, I'll give you it back as a flip.
Yeah.
So they don't get that much stock, or what people do is they get 4 agents round, and they've said to me, "Oh, I can like, do you know what I mean? This is actually what it would be worth for you." But then an agent's like, "No, you can get 20 grand more than that." It just sits on the market.
Of course, it does. Yeah.
So they give us that anyway. And I worked on 135 NVAL, and I thought I'm pushing it 135 here. And then as I'd finished, I'd done it to a really nice standard because I don't like doing. I don't like doing stuff, even like the HMO, anything. You look and you're spending 30 grand. I'm like, right, for 3 grand more, I can get a much nicer kitchen, tiled bathroom, like feature walls, lights. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, it's not unbelievable.
Acoustic paneling and stuff.
Yeah.
Finishing bits. Yeah.
And it's just that little bit, and I think you get that back.
Of course you do.
Or on a reval, you get that back. And anyway, one literally not even 2 streets away, done up as well like mine, but not staged, didn't look quite as nice. Just went for 149, and I was like, oh. And then I asked the agent, she was like, I put yours up for 150 all day long, and I was like, oh, there's way more profit in this than I expected. Yeah. Because I got a bridge as well. And anyway, I just thought, do you know what? I don't know if I was even sat with you. I know you're a bit about service accommodation.
Yeah, I've had good and bad experience with it.
So I just thought, do you know what? I'm on a bridge. I've finished it within the refurb within 8 weeks. I've essentially got 10 months. I know I need to sell it or refinance at the time. I'm going to try it as an SA. Yeah. Because I already had staged the flip previous.
That's right.
But I'd bought the furniture. Because I always planned to. I was actually. It didn't come through. I was actually going to get a rent to rent. I'm so glad it never. So I bought the furniture for the flip, thinking once I get this rent to rent, I'll move it in. But anyway, I thought, well, I've got the furniture. I'll try it. Yeah. I mean, it's hit and miss. I don't mind it. I have friends who do really, really well managing Airbnbs, and it's not a perfect area. It's good for contractors. But they even looked at the area and were like, it's hit and miss if that'll work. And I'm like, you need to get like the council or a contract or something in long term.
Yeah, I think that's my issue with service accommodation. I've still got some. I've started to turn a lot of them back to buy-to-lets, but I just like certainty. Yeah. I like planning my months. I like to know exactly what's coming in at the end of the month. Yeah. It's not always the same. Obviously, a bit of maintenance here and there, but with service accommodation, you'd have a screamer of a month, and you'd start getting ahead of yourself, and then the next month you'd be in the doldrums again. It was just.
I was talking to my dad about it yesterday, and I said, what is going to decide it for me is I'm keeping it anyway now. and refinancing.
Yeah, it's a good.
Yeah, I
it's a good
thought,
house,
why?
that one.
Like, I'm actually, if I refinance it and get the value on, I'm only leaving like 6 or 7 grand in. I was like, why would I not? I've done everything, like a full rewire. Do you know what I mean? Like fully skimmed, damp proofed. Why would I not keep this for
Exactly.
7 grand?
Yeah.
Like, I know I can make.
Got peace of mind for years.
Yeah, I think it was like 28 or 30 or something. It was a nice profit on a flip. But I thought, well, I can keep this for 7 and it's going to go up in value. And
Of course it is.
so I've started the refinance, but I said to my dad, I'm going to average it over 6 months and see how much more it's made than a buy-to-let would. And if it's not averaging over double what a buy-to-let is, I'd
needs
rather
to be.
just go to a buy-to-let because, like, you see it empty for the first week of the month and week and a half, then like, oh, we've got a booking, and then you're paying for, you're still seeing the broadband come out, the bills, the water, the council tax.
Yeah.
And I was just like, my buy-to-let, you barely, I know it's less money, but it's, I don't really touch wood hear from them.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
and
the odd time.
if you transfer the business rates now, don't you? If you're going to do a long
Yeah,
term, because you
yeah.
get double empty home allowance, etc. So yeah, I just think that they're okay to dabble in. There's a couple of my properties do particularly well, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy. I'm not going to do any more service accommodation going forward. So, and then your HMO then, because you just touched on, you've done your first HMO in South Shield. It's obviously I've seen a lot of pictures of. Looks really, really nice.
Yeah, again, that's the one that we mentioned about the deposit. So I use my mum's house as collateral as such.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic builder I've used in the end on that. It's just going to finish. Well, it's finished this week. It's just going to be listed for tenants. Took about 14, 15 weeks. It was ready a bit sooner, but you know, like the final bits of staging and the little snags. And really, I got the HMO just because I'd seen like the property triangle. So you go buy to let. Do you know what I mean? Maybe SA and HMO.
Natural progression.
Then then like commercial to residential and commercial or whatever, or then ground up development.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I want to try one of these. And it's going to cash flow what 4 or 5 buy to lets do.
Yeah.
But obviously, I haven't had one, so I don't know.
Yeah.
There'll be more tenant turnover because how many people?
There'll definitely be more tenant turnover. Yeah.
And I don't know how chewy generally the tenants are. But again, I had the same mindset. I got an interior designer. I got an architect. I got because it was my first one. Yeah, I was looking. I thought, would I rather leave 10 grand more in this deal, but have it properly designed, look really nice, high spec, and hopefully get higher tenants and be proud of it. Like
That's the main thing.
I look at it and it looks a really nice property.
Yeah, it does.
And I thought, yeah, I'd be happy to leave a bit more, and it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't bother me because even daft stuff like I got the pictures back and I was saying to my girlfriend yesterday, and in the en-suites. I mean, I've nothing against people who put one tile behind the vanity unit, but it was like per ensuite it was like 100 or 120 extra to have a full strip of tiles up and like a feature.
Yeah.
I was like all day long. I know if you do this for everything, like each room I have a hardwired Wi-Fi booster. Each room's on its own. It's not even an RCBO, it's an AFFD. It's a bit technical, but do you know what I mean? It's like I upgraded all of this stuff just because future-proofs it. I should get better tenants and should be happier there. They're not going to be complaining the internet's slow.
Exactly, yeah. That type of thing does decrease your tenant turnover, which is a big thing with HMOs. So yeah, you've done a lot of strategies there in a short space of time. What's your favourite out of the lot?
I'll see how this HMO goes, but I know I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. I see people on, and it's very much like niche down onto one strategy. Do you know what I mean? Even Ollie, obviously, we go for coffees. Ollie Hindle, really great guy. He's just stuck to buy to let. He's killing it in buy to let.
I love his discipline in that.
I know it's mental, but I'm like,
but it's working for him.
It's working, yeah. But I thought last year, like in my head, I thought, well, if I try your SA, try social housing, try your HMO, have my buy to lets, do some flips. It is a bit of everything. Or do a trade as well, property trade. Like I will know which I enjoyed, which I hated.
Exactly.
And then I can be like, right, now this next 2 years, 3 years.
Double down
and go.
Exactly.
Right, this HMO worked. I love it. Or I don't like that actually. Don't like SA, but I like, do you know what I mean? Even the social housing I had issues with to start with. So it'll essentially, without trying it, you can read as much as you want. I went to that day for the HMOs until you actually do it and you have the licensing officer there. Yeah. Even daft stuff like I looked online, the architect designed it to the spec online, spoke to the council, no, we don't use that anymore.
Maybe saying that, yeah.
And I'm like, well, why is it online? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's lucky we hadn't actually done anything, and that I know people who've just put one oven and one hob in, and then they've been like, no, you need extra. And imagine you've plastered it, the sparkies have to come back, run another. Do you know what I mean? Luckily, I'd already designed it to a high enough spec that it didn't matter. But I actually said to the officer, that's a bit shocking, that, because imagine if I'd started, you don't have to apply for the license at the end. I know it's advised earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's loads of little
fortune.
Yeah, but the main thing, like going back to obviously the training and stuff, to spend 15 or 20 grand on a course, I don't honestly like read about it, join a network, decide what you want to do, maybe get a mentor, because even someone who could save you thousands, you know what I mean? Like just telling you, like, don't do this, do this.
Exactly.
Or in my head, I thought paying a course, I'd never even consider it, but 15 grand, that could be more than half a deposit to a buy-to-let, and I'd learn more off buying one.
Going through it, yeah. And like you say, joining, like you've proven, joining a network is far more cost efficient. Mentors, one-on-one sort of teachings from a mentor. For me, you can't beat that.
I think it depends on your capital as well, and some mentors,
course
like,
it does.
are absolute. Some mentors are 20 odd grand, but I think you need to be at a certain level to look at them.
Of course you do. Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
I say this all the time, but I'd happily have a mentor in every area of my life.
yeah,
Literally, I'd have someone follow me around the gym, someone follow me around at work, and just literally, someone who's already achieved what you want to achieve.
Exactly.
Why would you? If you can afford it, obviously it's never cheap.
Yeah, but that's I agree with that, because even speaking to people, they're like, I might not look it, but they're like, you know what you do in the gym? You know what you're doing in the gym? And I'm like, yeah, but I pay him for accountability. Yeah. And I know I had to check in this week, and I had a bad weekend, and it's the same with business. If you have someone to almost just keep you accountable, and they spot things like that you won't spot or think of, no matter how knowledgeable you are, how clever you are, there will always be.
I've seen it all before.
Yeah, even a refurb I'm managing now, the owner was like, knock this wall down, move it a metre there, that's it. That's the design. I was like, The builder started was like, why don't you leave that wall out, not put it back in, brick the back door up and turn that into the bedroom, then you have a big... So I was like, that's actually quite a good idea. Rang the owner, he's like, what a great idea, why didn't I think of that? But do you know what I mean? And we've gone with that plan. Yeah. But I didn't see it. No. The owner didn't see it. And then the builder was like, so just off having more brains on stuff, same as a mentor, yeah? You could be like, this deal doesn't work, this does, this... It's quite hard going... I think it's hard going full-time, staying disciplined when I'm used to having to be... I have good discipline, but you'll know yourself, obviously, if I want to hit snooze for an hour, there's no one telling me any day I can't. Do you know what I mean? So, it's being self-employed, that was not the hardest part, but staying do you know what I mean? I joined an accountability group. There's a call 6 o'clock every morning. Yeah. And that is I have to be up for then. Yeah. And then once you're up, I have nothing else that I have to do during the day. But once I'm already up, wrote down what I'm doing for the day, my main targets, and done that accountability, the day's already started, right? The rest of the day goes well. Yeah, that's it. I know you can have to crop up, but do you know what I mean?
You'd set you up for the day, doesn't it? Today's my day off the gym. And I said to Louise earlier, I hate it. I feel all over the shop
What
mentally.
time did you get up?
I got up at 4 still.
Did you?
Yeah, but I just worked on my laptop instead of going to the gym. But because I like getting up at the same time every day, it maintains your routine. But just not going to the gym, that little piece or big piece of my jigsaw in the morning's missing. I feel all over the shop.
Really that much?
I feel like there's no structure to my morning. Yeah, I'm referring to my diary all the time. Whereas when my day goes as planned, get up, gym, shower, eat, work. Yeah. It's just everything just feels right now.
Yeah, I think it's like momentum, isn't it? If you know your gym's right, your diet as well. 100%. Earlier this year, I'd done it was more of a challenge for a photo shoot. And for 4 months, I was I've tried intermittent fasting, lower calories, and I was honestly so focused. And it was it's mental as soon as that goal's hit or that photo shoot's done, or you just slightly stray a bit with bad food, missing the gym. I don't miss the gym really, but do you know what I mean? It's easy to then just be oh.
Yeah, even if you drop off 10-15%, you'd notice a big difference. I was going to say, what do you think's been your biggest obstacle that you've overcome so far?
As much as it might not look it, if you look at my Instagram, posting videos to start with, I was I can't sit in front of a camera. Do you know what I mean?
We all think that, don't we?
Yeah, and then honestly, I've started to enjoy it. Some I overthink, but I've actually started to I know everything I post that might be trying to give value, you or a lot of my followers would already know, but the ones that I'm aiming at, who would be sourcing clients or project management clients, don't know. So I have to get that out of my head that everyone knows this, because I try and think, if I was at the start of my journey, would this give me some value or not just regurgitating what everyone else does? Yeah. And I honestly, that was the biggest obstacle to overcome. And having, because I've never done any sales or anything, I've always like been pretty confident. Obviously, I was area manager level for Amazon, so I had to be in meetings with high people and speak to stuff. But it's totally different having a sales call with an investor, and not a sales call, but do you know what I mean? I'm trying to sell like my services, but the only thing that's made it a lot easier is having a portfolio and doing it. Because I couldn't, I'd honestly struggle so much to try and source to someone. They'd be like, how do you know that rent's going to be that?
Exactly.
I can't be like, oh, you own a house in that street, this. Do you know what I mean? I've refurbed there, I've done this. If you hadn't, I'm like, because a lot of people sit again to property, start sourcing. Yeah. And I'm like, if I didn't have that, I'd be just like this on the call, like.
It's true. It's very true. Yeah, you know you've got the credibility, don't you?
Yeah,
and you know whoever you're speaking to has seen what you've done online. That's your CV, isn't it? I always say it's your electronic CV, and
100%.
They can see your credibility, so you can say with all this confidence, do this, do that. I've done it myself.
Yeah.
So many people are sourcing properties, are selling courses, selling mentorships that haven't done it, and some of them come across so confident. It blows my mind. I'm like, how can you speak about something so confidently that you've got no experience in?
Yeah.
It's just mental. So I wanted to speak about that because you've built up quite a strong presence, or you were building a strong presence online with Project Property. Was branding something you always planned, or has that just sort of evolved as you've gone?
Do you know where it comes from? Even the name, from the dessert place. So there was a dessert shop that absolutely smashed it selling donuts called Project D. I'm probably giving them some free plug here.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could come up with loads of names. I was like, Project Property, that'll do. And like, I didn't overthink the logo too much because I know obviously Orange sales and lettings, you see the boards around, like you've gone deep into the feelings people think about Orange. I didn't go that deep. I was more just, instead of being perfect, just start. And then the content, obviously, if you look back at my first video, was awful. And then I started to outsource some of the editing. But I enjoyed editing myself. But you get to a point, like a couple of months ago, I was like, I'm filming them, or my girlfriend is. I haven't paid anyone to film them yet. I'm trying to edit them myself. I'm then trying to view and source properties. I'm then managing refurbs. And then I was looking at trying to manage SAs. And I just thought, right, I need to just like straight away cut out the video editing. It's taking me hours. I can pay someone off Instagram. I found a really good guy. He's based in Africa, Algeria.
Yeah, you introduced me to him.
Yeah, really, really good. So I use him. Obviously, you're the same. You get messages every day of people trying to sell editing or services. Yeah. And I don't know, I just thought every investor I've had, apart from the ex-work colleague and people I knew, every investor has been off social media. So I'm like, if I didn't have that and I don't keep posting, I don't, do you know what I mean, show it, then there is no business essentially. Now it's a bit easier because I've had someone do a BRR and they're ready for the next one. I've had the investor do a JV and a flip. So once you get past the stage, you'll have recurring
of course
customers. But to start with, like you just need to put yourself out there.
Yeah, and I think even you can't get complacent either, can you? Because you like you say, you're banking up a lot of customers' repeat business now because you're obviously providing a very good service for them. But you can't get complacent with that, can you? You need that to keep bringing in the new customers as well. So are you just as consistent with your social media now as when you started?
I was until the last 2 weeks actually, and I try not to be as hard on myself because it's weird if you look at the analytics. I've gained just as much followers in the last 2 weeks, even though I've only posted once, than I do the 2 weeks before when I posted like 3 times a week.
That's interesting.
So I try not to overthink it. I think you're probably the same. I have a constant battle in my mind. I film stuff, edited it, and been like, no, I'm not posting that. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it gives enough value, or whereas I think I need to just post it. And
you do, because like you touched on before, and I think you and I have had this conversation before actually in a coffee shop, but the fact that you feel a bit silly talking about something that you think everyone knows about already, but you're right, you need to check yourself and think, well, no, hang on a minute, 10 years ago I didn't know this, so let's put it out there. People will get real value from it. Yeah,
so just an example of that, I had a call with someone who was like it was a sales call as a sourcing, like they were saying they'll get you to 20 grand a month sourcing, do you know what I mean? So jumped on it, see what they had to say. One piece of value they give was I went on my Instagram, like, you've done loads of great stuff, but it's showing all your deals. She said, if I'm an investor in a buy-to-let, I don't know what you can do for me. She was like, I didn't end up going with the services. She was like, you need to do a post showing how much you need, what you can do. So anyway, just a turnkey buy-to-let, I'd done a video of like all the fees, including the sourcing fee, like how much it cost, done a video of the net rent. It didn't get much as much engagement or views as like all the nice flips and stuff, but I had 4 messages on Instagram and 2 on TikTok, and like booked in out of them 5 calls, and out of them 2 retained investors. I'm like, brilliant. That's mad. Like I would never have, if I thought to post that, like everyone knows you need a deposit, you need your stamp duty, you need this.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And I'm thinking like, but then when I spoke to the investors, they're like, absolutely, like not away with the fairies, just they don't know.
Just busy people.
Yeah, just busy. Yeah, and they don't. The one of them was based in London and another further south. They don't want to visit the properties. They're not bothered.
But no interest.
They fully trust me. Once you've had a call with someone, you can get a good vibe, I think.
Gosh, can.
Not maybe, I think an hour's call with someone, you can tell if they're genuine. I've even, like, an investor doesn't even know this. I had a decorator around. This was one of my first ones at the start of the year. And they missed 2 doors painting. And they had viewings coming. They already had a small portfolio of like 3. And they had 2 viewings the next day. And I went to look at it the next night to make sure it was all fine. The night before, sorry. And the decorator missed it. I messaged him. I was like, "You've missed these doors. They look awful. You can't have tenants coming to view it." Do you know what I mean? Like they were just looked awful. He was like, "I can get back tomorrow night." I said, "That's no good." So anyway, I drove to Screwfix, got the paint, got the brushes. Well, I already had bits because I'd done my own. Yeah. Drove back, just painted it myself. Didn't even tell the investor I'd done it. I just thought. And then the next day, no one even knew. Yeah, and I just thought like, I was sat there thinking, how many sources, project managers. I mean, some might look at it and think, well, you shouldn't have had your decorator let you down. You should have. Do you know what I mean? But normally a day to get back is quick enough. But because it was viewings, and I just thought, like, I care just as much, if not more, about an investor's refurb as my own. If an electrician on mine's like, it's 200 quid more, I'm like, well, it is what it is, mate. Do you know what I mean? I trust you. Yeah, but for an investor, I'm a bit like, I told him it'd be.
Yeah, you always care more.
Yeah. But I think that's it's a good trait to have because it'll get you more business and people think you're genuine.
You need to do a video about that.
I probably do, yeah. I do actually.
See all the runs on the door what you've been painting. Yeah, cheers, Jack. But so you've used social media to gain a lot of customers then by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
A lot of return customers. Is the aim eventually to use it to gain angel finance as well then as you move forward? Yeah,
that'll probably be the next step. So I've actually signed up with a coach from Prosperity. I know we discussed it last time we had a coffee. And it's just mad to see how she thinks. She was like, well, use your own money to continue buying your buy-to-lets, HMOs, whatever. And I said I want to get into commercial, residential, commercial, a few bigger deals just to see, to set my cash flow up to where I want to be. And then she was just like, yeah, we'll raise the angel investment for that. I was like, yeah, I know it's not that easy. She's like, no, it is. Like, and I was like, well, it's not. She was like, well, you haven't even posted about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I listened to one of your last podcasts and they said, it might be in your most recent one. And the woman said, like, if it's not in the shop window, how can anyone buy it?
Do you know what I mean?
They don't know. So
no, that's right, isn't it?
Like, it is so obvious. I've never asked for it.
Yeah.
I've had people approach me, funnily enough, they've booked calls in. I actually took my call link off my Instagram because I had people booking in that were just, I will help everyone. And like, even a few weeks ago, someone had a half an hour call just to help him with his HMO refinance because he was struggling. He bought one without any guidance. He stuffed his numbers up. Didn't ask for any money or, do you know what I mean? Didn't want anything from it. But I had people booking in just to basically, for an hour, just be like, I want to do this, how do I do this? And like, right, cheers. Yeah. I'm just like, well, I'm not like offering free, do you know what I mean? Mentoring calls. Yeah. So now I ask a few questions. It's on my website, but generally if people have been to my website, they know it's to book. Yeah, I asked a few questions. It's to book a service, but I've had a few, not loads. I've had 3 angel investor calls, right? Just randomly booked in. They wanted to angel, but 2 of them, they expected like a bit too much interest, and one of them should go ahead. It's not a massive amount, but it just gets me more used to it. But yeah, I think I'll use that ultimately. As you know, if you have a good social media following, you have credibility. Your company's house stacks up to what you say. Yeah. So I've actually had an investor say to me, "Well, your company's house, like you've said, you've got this many properties." I'm like, I know, but the first 5 I've done a post on are in my own name, so you'll never see them in a company. Yeah. And like I had one, a flat. It wasn't expensive, but unencumbered. I said, you're never going to see a charge on that. No
charge on it. Yeah.
So I was like, I said, look, I'll send you my mortgage statements for each of them 5 in my own name. And he was just like, no, I believe you. I just want to question it to see.
Yeah. Oh, good on him.
And I said, it's good. I said that.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, some people might be offended, like as if he's done that. And I was like, do you know what? I don't know what he's going to be like. I haven't actually sourced him anything. he hasn't gone ahead yet. Hopefully he does if he's listening.
Yeah.
But I thought he's obviously knows his stuff and he's done his due diligence. But I've got nothing to hide.
No, there's so many people
So,
just throw money at people.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and there's so many property influencers online, and you look at the company's house in their own name, and they've got nothing. They haven't got a bean.
Yeah, I know. But like they're saying, I've made like this
Yeah.
money and I've done this, and I'm like, honestly, I'd done the post I said about numbers. I went through 3 times on a spreadsheet to make sure I wasn't a penny off because I thought I'm not putting anything on Instagram.
No,
that is wrong.
You can't. It's
Like,
too easy for people to check nowadays.
Yeah.
But that's good. I like that. I like that he's done that. So, what do you think, from a new investor's point of view, what do you think's the main thing that stops new investors getting going? Someone's got 1 or 2 properties and they're just stuck. What do you think is the main obstacle?
At 1 or 2, I think it would probably be capital or knowledge. So if they don't have the capital, then obviously it's stuck in them 2 and they can't refinance them. They just bought them. Mm-hmm. You obviously need to find a way to get capital, whether that's saving up, family. So I'd say that's one of the main things that stops, especially buying. And as you know, a buy-to-let doesn't cash flow loads. If you BRR it, just to touch on that as well, a lot of people see online, and I've had calls with them like, yeah, I just want all money out. Like, but if you're paying a sourcer 3 or 4 grand, you're paying the project management, how do you expect? That means it would have to be net. You'd have to pull more money out if you're paying for my services or anyone's services. Like the deals just aren't around like that anymore. Yeah. Or like the absolutely awful areas. Do you know what I mean? Or they're just someone's absolutely overinflated every GDV and underinflated the refurb. I generally just say to them, look, realistically nowadays, especially with sourcing and PM, you're leaving 15 grand in up to 20.
100%.
Like easy. Yeah. I said even my own deals, like they are out there, but they're generally not
absolute unicorns. Yeah, especially with legal fees are not cheap now. Stamp duties,
stamp duties
forever going up.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started buying properties, I was getting all my money out of deals. I think there's only 4 or 5 throughout my whole journey that I've got all my money out.
I bet the refurbs then as well were half the price. There was no stamp duty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was just so much easier. Yeah. It's very, very difficult to get all the money out of a property deal. And I'd comfortably buy a buy-to-let tomorrow if I'm leaving 15 grand in the deal. I think it's a great deal.
I think that's what new investors need to, when you said what's a stumbling block, they could sit for a year trying to get all money out. And in that time, they could have bought one, done a BRR. And you have to think, if you leave 15, 20 grand in, you've still got all the equity of the 25% deposit in the property as well. Yeah. After a year or 2, you refinance. You could have been sat on the fence 18 months, whereas if you just bought one, then 2 years later, you refinance, you've got money back, the rent.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I think that's a good point. I think new investors coming into the market now, there's so much rubbish online about getting all your money out. It's almost expected. And like you said, they're sat waiting for the perfect deal to come along. They could have done 3 or 4 BRRs and left 15 grand in each deal there. Yeah. And people think there's this mindset now where, I'm left 15 grand in the deal. Like as if that money's gone down the drain. Yeah. It's still your money. It's still sat in that property.
Yeah.
Like that's your money. If you came to sell it, you would realise that cash. And it's gone too far that way now. But it means there's more deals for us.
Yeah, true. And everyone wants to do it so quick. Like obviously I've not got a massive portfolio, but 12 years ago I bought my first one, then another 2 years. Do you know what I mean? It was slow. Yeah. I mean, I know some people hate the job, but like if it's a site, I've had a call with someone just recently over 5 years, wants to build up enough just to be more comfortable. I was like, perfect. Not in a massive rush, got a good pot. Yeah. And he'll probably like do well off that mindset rather than saying, I've got 50 grand, I want to buy 4 this year. And I'm like,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's just not going to happen. Yeah, it's unrealistic. And my first 10 properties, I say this all the time, but the first 10 properties were bloody hard work. It was so slow. I mean, you're talking a decade. Yeah. I know I could have done it quicker, but didn't have the funds available. Yeah. And it was a hard slog. And then it just snowballs like anything else, and you get quicker and quicker. And all of a sudden, you're like, bloody hell, it's a decent portfolio now. So people just need to be realistic, and people need to educate themselves. I do think sourcing, when you're low on funds in the early days, I do think sourcing's a good way to build to build up your funds. Definitely. Like you've touched on, it's difficult to have confidence and sell deals to people if you haven't done it yourself. I get that. Yeah. But at least in becoming a sourcer, you're building relationships with agents, you're building relationships with build teams, you're learning how to do your numbers and package them up to be able to sell them. Yeah. So I do think there's a lot of benefit in that. And in the early days as a sourcer, if you're transparent and you say, look, I know all of this, however, I haven't done them. Yeah. I think people appreciate that.
I think so as well. Yeah, I think I agree with that. And there's also the option of if you're still working, you want to build up your funds, and you find something, but you don't have an investor, you can co-source. A lot of people will. Like last year, actually, before I had enough investors, I co-sourced a couple, but like you have to. people message me saying, would you co-source? I'm like, yeah, but because I don't know you, I've never worked you, I'd need to see the property myself. I'm not trusting your no offence,
No.
but I'm not trusting your refurb.
Well, your name's on it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I say if it's one of my investors, but like you touch on there, if you had none of that credibility, such you hadn't done a deal, you can just reach out to people and say, look, I've got a build around, I've got 2, here's the quote.
Yeah.
Here's why I think it's worth this in the end. Here's this, here's a walkthrough video, you can go and view it. And you're like, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, it's like you've done it. You've done more than you could ask, yeah.
Exactly.
If you don't have an investor, I'll find one, and we'll split the fee. And it's like,
and by co-sourcing with people, that there's another relationship that you're building, isn't it? And your network's growing and growing. So, from your sourcing perspective, do you see that as a long-term play for you, or is that just something that's helping with your cash flow as you build?
So I'm not like a prolific sourcer as such as some of them out there doing absolute like mental numbers and good to them. I'm like happy with, at the moment, I'm happy with a few a month. Do you know what I mean? That's more than enough. I'm happy to tick over, get the refurbs from them, and have recurring clients. So it's like, it is something I want to build. I've just took my dad's starting for me part time as a project manager as well, because he enjoys that side. So that frees me up my time. So that's what in the short 6 months I've been full time, I realised I need to free up my time everywhere I can. So if I can even if I can take less on the project management fee, but I don't spend really any time or much of it, and I can have my dad, do you know what I mean? That's outsourced. Then I look at the next part, maybe employ someone to do viewings, video walkthroughs, and I'll just analyse it or go out to them if we needed to. So I think I definitely want to grow it, but also at the same time, I want to grow my own portfolio as well. So there's only a certain amount of investors. Now, if I have a call, they'll pay a retainer. I don't really, occasionally I put them out to a WhatsApp group, but not that often. Normally it's like I already have someone lined up. They'll pay a retainer. So if I'm going to view a property and I know the numbers won't work for me or I don't have the cash, I know who I'm going to send that to. So it's a nice, I think if I'd be a bit more under pressure and nervous if I had 10 or 15 sat there, I wouldn't take that many because you need to constantly have the deals. And then I'm already quite cautious with numbers, as I mentioned earlier on flips. I'm saying with investors, like I saw one of the most recent ones I said GDV of 130 and straight away the bridging lender said before there's any work it's 135 and then I said
that's good though.
Yeah. And I said one at 115 and then I found out someone I mentored got one 10 doors down, he got a reval at 130. So the investor's going to be buzzing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I even said to him, I was like, look, I don't think it's worth 130. I think it's worth more than 115, but put 115 because I think if you go 125 or 120, even if you get a down well, which I don't think you will, you're not going to get less than that.
Yeah. That's transparency again.
It is transparency, but maybe that's also a bit worse because just that 5 or 10 grand sending the numbers could mean the difference between leaving 22 or 15 in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they might say no to that deal, and I know it's actually going to be a decent deal, but I don't want to risk it for them. So
it's tempting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
just having that conversation and saying, look, I am conservative on my numbers. These are my numbers. I think I am slightly conservative.
Yeah.
So bear that in mind.
Yeah.
You know, if you sat on the fence on the deal, bear in mind that I am being conservative in my numbers, so you may well come out
better.
trumps. Yeah.
That's what I'd rather do, under promise and over deliver, but then you sell more deals essentially the other way around. Do you know what I mean? Not under delivering, but like if you said it'll leave 12 in, it does, rather than saying 20 but actually leaves 12 in.
Yeah.
Not many might go for it.
But on the flip side of that, if they do leave 20 in the deal, it's not the end of the world anyway.
No, I know, yeah. I've left more
you could have sold them more volume. So I can see where your thought process is, because you can sell the deals and ultimately you're doing good for the investor anyway, regardless, even if they do leave 20 grand in.
Yeah, they've got a brand new property.
It's a long-term game, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you manage all the refurbs whenever you start sending your project manager the refurbs as well?
Yeah. So apart from the HMO, I used a builder just because it was 45 minutes away. I'd never done a HMO. There's so many regulations and I had too much on, to be honest. I'm so glad I'd done it.
Yeah. It's flown.
Yeah, it's flown. And he's actually wanting to work with me more in future because it's been nice for him. I'll answer anything within 20 minutes, whether it's 5 in the morning or like 10 at night. But the guy would like send a question from the electrician straight to me. But because I've done my own refurbs, qualified as, I didn't actually ever do houses. I was oil and gas. But because I know that I'll have my dad for the plumbing, like there's investors that don't even understand anything in a property. And I can't expect him to.
No.
Like, not everyone, but like he liked that I'd have an answer or know the answer or understand what's going on. When there was there was a few hiccups, which is going to be like wood rotted floor joists, the floor upstairs when we knocked the wall out with different heights. And because I've managed my own, there was no. He was just like, it'll be X to sort. We'll have to do this. Yeah, I know it's not. Where some investment are like, what do you mean? Like,
yeah.
So
it's comfort in that, isn't it?
yeah. So it's nice to use him. Hopefully, I'll work more together in future. But generally, on the more local ones, like you said, a pool of 3, 4, 5 plasterers, electricians. All of them I've used before, but generally you sometimes cycle through them and you'll know yourself, some are fast but expensive, some are slower but cheaper. Depends on the refurb. If it's a £250,000 flip,
yeah,
I want the decorator who's like got OCD. But if it's, I mean, none of them are bad, but do you know what I mean? If it's a buy to let and they want a minimum refurb, you go over the guy who's £500 cheaper, but his eye attention to detail's not quite. I mean, this sounds bad as in they're not just going to slap it on the wall.
No,
you know what I mean? Like,
but you know, there's levels to it.
Yeah, there's levels with tiling, there's levels with everything.
Of course there is, yeah.
And you get what you pay for, but I'd have that conversation with the investor. I'd say, like, look, I have these decorators, this is generally an £800 difference, but they'll be this weight with this. Which do you want? So it does take up a lot of time, though. And that's why I've obviously brought my dad on. But it is, I've made contacts through my solicitor. So just on taking action, I bought a deal last year. It didn't end up leaving what I thought, and it left a lot more in. Had damp. Do you know what I mean? This was I bought off a sourcer twice. Still a good deal. I left like 13 grand in the end. So I'm still happy.
Brilliant. Yeah.
From that, I met a solicitor. Solicitor does everything from me. I've now the solicitor invests near me. Managed one of their refurbs. They sort of give me a test. I think went well. Give me another, and then the investors, the solicitor's business partner is also a sourcer, does more than me, been a sourcer for a few years. He's then given me pricing to manage some for his investors. So I just got one this week, going to price one today after this. So like it soon snowballs if you do you know what I mean? If you do a good job, stick to your prices, stick to your timelines, and are transparent. I say, and like there could be, this is my estimate, there could be stuff that crops up. Yeah. But will always be most of the people I use, and I'm not trying to take anyone's eyes out. Like the trades I use are decent. They're not either. So yeah, I manage all of them myself. And I've seen actually an actual project manager moan about sources project managing, saying they don't know X, they don't know that. But my role at like Amazon or whatever, one of the projects before I left was a fire project, like all upgrading the system, 1.5 million. And I was the one like who had to, my seniors done a lot of the work, I'm not gonna lie, but I had to ultimately sit in the meetings with the Amazon team for the building, do you know what I mean? Like watch these full projects, got my NEBOSH in certificate in safety. Like I know how a project runs, and it's not like, do you know what I mean? I haven't just been like, I'm being a sourcer one day managing this refurb. Yeah, it's like,
I think that project manager's probably just saying that to create a bit of a niche for himself.
Yeah, they probably were, but I mean, they're right in a aspect, but I almost felt like I need to defend myself here. I need to put a post on saying it wasn't even to me.
Yeah, you're not just a property source, right? You know, you're investing in yourself. You're doing your own refurbs, etc. So, couple of questions. How easy are you finding it to find deals currently? And also, how difficult do you find it to say, if it is a really good deal, to then sell it on to an investor and not buy it yourself?
I'd say it's harder now, actually, than I felt like it was last year. Depends who you speak to and whatever. In the Northeast, especially, there seems to be so much influx of like, I've had calls of people from Hong Kong,
me too,
Kuwait, London. You'll know, obviously, with Orange, like, there's a lot of, look at the investor you mentioned earlier, Russian, like, there's a lot of eyes on the Northeast because the prices are still relatively cheap and probably going to, like, boom, especially when, obviously, Newcastle Football Club, all the investment into Darlington, do you know what I mean? There's all these areas. But I don't know, I think the deals are harder because of that now.
More competition in general.
More competition, so I think they are harder, and it's sourcing, I'll be honest, is not as easy as I thought it would be. I thought it would be hard, but it's, as I mentioned, it's maybe something I need to adjust slightly. It's a bit harder when I'm even being conservative, more conservative, but I think the deals are out there. I think we need to have more of a mindset, like you said, if you leave 20 grand instead of 15, like, property's a long game. I look at ones I bought even 5 years ago and they've nearly doubled in value, and I'm like, imagine if I'd have not bought that because I left, like I didn't BRR it, but imagine if it was like 3 or 4 grand. No, I'm not buying that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have to sort of like, it's hard when it's someone's first or they're a new investor and they've got that in their mind. But yeah, one, I think the deals are hard to find, but they're out there. Relationships with agents is key. And direct to vendor. So I've started to try and do more of that through from Prosperity. Started running ads, just about to start a new campaign, funnels. I had one I agreed. We agreed it. I was going to buy it. I was actually going to source it. I had an investor, and then another sourcer was like, he seen the advert, he seen what I'd put in. I just put the first part of the postcode, you know, like the NE whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, you getting like, why aren't you buying that? Like a house for that price in that area. I was like, oh, why Anna? I was like, right, I'll buy it. So anyway, I was like, yeah, I'll buy it. Went to send over the contract because we agreed direct to vendor will pay her legal fees, everything.
Yeah.
She was like, it was bank holiday weekend. She's like, well, I'll sign it Monday or whatever. Tuesday come, no response. Wednesday, like, oh, have you managed to look at that? Like, it was just to say if she pulls out, she owes us some money because I'd have had to pay both solicitors some money. Thursday, she hated agents as well. Like, she did not want to put up with an agent, so I was like, champion. She was happy with the offer. We offered initially, and I went round, it was worse than what we thought, so we knocked a bit down.
Yeah.
Anyway, Thursday come, she texts, my husband's gone behind my back and got 2 agents out, and they think it's worth a lot more than what. And we were like, they will say that, and you probably might get a bit more, but you have to hold it for another 3-4 months. Someone might get like with a mortgage, and I might not get a mortgage because it's maybe uninhabitable. You know, it's right on the verge, especially if you went with some companies, no chance to get it. So anyway, lost that one. So that's the hardest
that's common,
part,
isn't it? That must happen all the time.
That's the hardest part with direct to vendor. So and keeping them, it depends where my cash is. It's weird, right? Because I'll keep one with 15 grand left in, but then I'll add in on my numbers a sourcing fee and project management and be like, oh, that leaves 16 in. Yeah, I'll give that to the investor. I'm like, well, if I took off my fees, it leaves less than 10 in my amount. Do you know what I mean? And I've actually sourced 2-1 the last 2. And I've looked, and if I took my sourcing fee or project management off, I'm like, that is better than the deal that
you need to
last one I bought.
Stop charging yourself sourcing fees.
That's I know. Honestly, I feel like I am, but it really just depends. Oh, so I think you asked how easy it is to sell.
Yeah.
Generally, I will normally have an investor. Like I say, I try and keep no more than 3 or 4 there, but one might want a BRR, one might want to buy to let. I generally won't even take a retainer for flips now because I feel like they're quite hard to find.
Yeah.
I just know I have a list of like contact details.
You don't need to put that pressure on yourself, do you?
No,
by taking retainers,
I mean,
especially if you've worked with them previously as well.
Exactly. So flips, I generally, if I do, well, I want 2 flips for myself anyway. I want one with the JV myself. So really, if I find any, like, I'd need to find 3 in the thirds going to investors.
Yeah.
But normally, I'd be able to sell them. I've had an investor, one at the moment, who's been quite unlucky. I've had auction companies say, if you proxy bid this, it'll get accepted. And he has. I haven't accepted it.
Yeah.
And it's gone to auction, gone for more. Happened twice. No, and then he bid on another that I'd sent, and it didn't get it, which is a bit frustrating, but I have to just obviously reassure, like, this sometimes happens.
Yeah.
The agents basically like said to me in writing, 99% likely if you put this in, this is past the reserve, it will get. And it doesn't. Like, there's nothing I'm saying to the investor, like, there's not much more I can do if an agent's telling me this.
That's no fault of yours.
Yeah, so, but I always have the backup now, just probably from that credibility and contacts. If I didn't have an investor, I'd always, if it's a deal, I'd have at least 3 I can think at the top of my head straight away I could co-source with.
Yeah,
I know be able to sell it.
Yeah, for sure. So back to your own portfolio then. Where do you see your portfolio going? You must do this because I do it. You sit and you daydream about where you're going to be. So I always say 5 years. Probably a bit long to ask that actually. Where do you see your portfolio being in 3 years?
3 years. I think I will buy a few more buy-to-lets. Just they're nice to keep.
They're easy, aren't they?
Easy, capital appreciation.
Yeah.
And like the coach from Prosperity mentioned, like, do you have a team can manage it? Yeah. Do you know your numbers well? Yeah. Are you confident on the rent? Yeah. I have house in these areas. Like, well, your bread and butter. Don't just. Do you know what I mean? If a good deal comes up, buy them. But ultimately, I think I want higher cash flow, but I like that my gran like lived off that commercial property and FRI like lease.
Brilliant.
Never really heard from it, and I was like, she just had money coming in off like a big solicitor firm and estate agents. And I think that's something, although the rates are a lot higher, I think that's where I see my portfolio going as well, more mixed use, ideally similar to development you're doing, where they'll have like commercial on the ground floor, HMO upstairs. I think that'll give me, in my head, I want to get to a certain amount of cash flow and think, right, I can chill now. If I don't want to, I don't even have to source, so I don't. But really, I'm not going to stop and, do you know what I mean? You're not going to stop and do nothing, are you? You just can't.
No, we're not that type of people, are we? But yeah, it's. I say this all the time, but when I first started investing in property, it was to retire. Couldn't think of anything worse than retiring.
Yeah.
I day to day, I do what I love, so I want to be doing this when I'm 70.
Yeah.
If I am, maybe sat in warmer climates doing it from a laptop or whatever.
But
But
your villa in Spain.
exactly, yeah, that's the aim. But ultimately, I love it.
Yeah.
So, and it's a great feeling not having a finish line in your mind. I think you just want to keep going. You just want
Yeah.
to.
From it, I think I want to get to enough where I can sort of repay my mum and dad, and just that now, like, once my living costs are covered, almost my next goal is to be able to live comfortably, but then to be like all the help they've give, like
100%.
it's not unnoticed, even with not necessarily money, but money as well, but more like time and just like I know I could rely on them any time. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's what we're doing ultimately. We're trying to buy our time back, aren't we?
Yeah,
That's what everyone's trying to do. We invest in anything. You're trying to buy that time back, and then of course you will. Your mum and dad and your family, your close family, will feel the benefit of that. I'm sure they will. But mixed use and commercial stuff, that's as you know, it's most of what I'm buying these days. Still just bought a couple of buy-to-lets. I'm going to continue to buy buy-to-lets.
Yeah, I was going to say
as and when the numbers work.
Similar.
Yeah. So my next 3 years is buying as much commercial and mixed use property as possible, but also just picking up buy-to-let as and when.
Yeah.
They're just a baby step.
A BRR buy-to-let or just?
Yeah, BRR. Yeah, I'll BRR everything and leave.
It's 15 grand your number.
15 grand, yeah. But to be honest, the more property you get and the more cash available, I guess, as your portfolio grows, leaving 20 grand in the deal doesn't bother me if it's in a strong house in a strong street that I know is going to go up and attract the right type of tenants. 15 grand's always been my number, and I've sort of stuck to that. But yeah, I'm flexible with that as you move. When you got one or two properties, you have to drill down on that 15 grand, don't you? But so yeah, it's but mixed use and commercial property is just a dream as regards tenancies and stuff like that. So. But is there an end game for you then? What's sort of the aim ultimately?
Ultimately is just to, I think, like we just discussed there, I'll get to a certain amount of cash flow and then I'll have tried all these strategies and decide. But I quite like the idea when I had the business, the desserts business, of buying or setting up another business. I know this is technically a property business, sourcing and whatever, but I mean more of like, I don't know what type of business. But do you know, something like
a trading business?
Yeah, but something even that might be more of a hobby once you get to, like I used to do go-karting as a kid. I love racing, love motorsports.
Yeah.
Like I remember the guy who bought the go-kart track was just a millionaire, like retired at 40 odd, and he just bought the go-kart track to like as a hobby. Do you know what I mean? He could just go on when I know, like once you have too much money, it might be boring, but that's probably when you go back to something like is your passion or where you can help others. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't ever really see myself, although I've mentored someone before, I don't really ever see myself going into like selling courses or training or anything like that. It's quite hard to really put a end goal on it because, like you say, you don't want to. I don't think I could ever just stop.
Yeah, no, I was just, you answered my question. You obviously want to open another business. I didn't know whether you fancied living abroad or buying properties abroad.
I think I would. So my cousins live in Dubai, but they moved like. Everyone lives in Dubai now, don't they? They moved like 10 or 12 years ago. So I was already going to visit them in Dubai before. It was like it was still popular, but it wasn't like it is now. Yeah. They actually don't like it as much now. They're like, it's changed.
Yeah, my mate says that actually.
It's getting too like westernized. Yeah. And I go out and I really like it. And do you know what? I think I'd have a holiday home. I like holiday homes places. But even then, do you know what? I don't like going to the same place twice really. Like when I go away, I
get that.
I'm going to Asia again at the end of the year. My missus wants to go and she's not been. And everywhere she wants to go, I'm like, I've been. Like, if we go, we have to see some place I've not been. Yeah. So I think if
Experience,
I had, I think maybe, I don't want to live abroad. I like the Northeast, but I think I'd maybe have a holiday home for the winter because
Escape when you need to.
Yeah, I don't know how
That's
you
my
find it,
sort
but
of aim, yeah.
getting up at 4 o'clock, like, I don't get up at 4, it's too early, but like 5:30 is, when it's light outside, I can do my call, I can go on a walk, and it gives me more energy. When it's
Brilliant,
dark,
isn't it?
yeah, and I've done my morning routine, gone on a walk, started work, had a coffee, look out the window, it's still dark, and you're like, it actually, it's only this year, when you're at work, you don't really care if you're not as,
No,
if
you
you work
want
for
to
someone
get to
else,
work and get home, don't you?
you get to work,
Yeah.
you don't care if you're not as motivated, but when you're self-employed and you're working for yourself and you're motivating yourself, I did notice a massive difference in winter to summer. So I think
100%.
I'd like to have a holiday home over winter essentially, or even have the money to like you just get an Airbnb somewhere for 3 months. Do you know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, with Europe now, with Brexit, you can only spend 90 days in Spain. I want to be in Spain.
Can you?
You only spend 90 days at a time.
I didn't know
You
that.
have to be out the country for 90 days. So, but that'll probably work for me because I see myself sort of 6 months England, 6 months Spain.
Yeah.
A few years down the line, this is. But yeah, the only thing with getting up at 4 in the morning, which I love doing, is the Spanish don't get up till like 10 a.m.
Don't they?
And then they have a siesta
Oh,
at
but they
3.
go to bed quite late, don't they?
Yeah, and then they have the dinner on a night at like 10.
Yeah.
I'm 2
Won't
hours
work
into my
with you.
sleep.
Yeah, won't
I'll have to change my body clock. That's the only issue I'm going to have, I think. But Jake, I've got a little quick fire question, quick round of questions, I should say, just to finish off.
Yeah.
So I want you to keep it as sharp and as honest as possible. So best thing about being in property?
Capital appreciation.
Biggest refurb mistake?
Paying a tiler who said he was a tiler and wasn't chipped every tile.
Yeah, I've been there. Book or podcast recommendation for new investors, apart from this one?
Apart from this one, I probably only listened to one other, and it's Kazi, Property by Kazi.
Yeah, I like that
I
one
met
as
him
well.
last year. Yeah,
he's good.
He's got some good guests.
Yeah. One thing you wish you knew before you started out?
I wish I knew BRRs and that the prices of property when we were buying them in Billingham 10, 12 years ago. I wish I'd bought a lot more. I just said to my family, give me everything you've got.
I know. And the people I worked with, I always worked with older people, and they always said, we should buy more property. Well, that's why I started buying property. Ultimately. And one thing you'd do differently if you could start all over?
Might be a boring answer, but I probably wouldn't change much. Like, I think if I'd have tried to go into it full time earlier, I wouldn't have been as mature. I've enjoyed my jobs and my roles. I think everything happens for a reason, the way life plans out. So I generally, it might sound like a bad or boring answer.
It's an answer that I've heard before, and I agree with it, yeah.
I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah,
really.
some people, something immediately jumps out in the head, and then they'll say, I wish I'd never gone into business with that person, or I wish I'd never bought that property.
Nothing,
But I think it's a good answer, the one you've given, and it's a positive answer.
Yeah, touch wood, I've not had any, like, you've had some bad tradesmen, but everyone has that. I've not had any really bad business relationships, not had any really big fallouts, not had any fights, not had any losses. I've never lost on a flip or anything.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that there's nothing. Buy more earlier, but then that's just hindsight. You can't, I wouldn't change anything.
Of course it is, yeah. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, as expected. We could go on for hours. I know we could, but the studio will start screaming at me. So I'm sure you're going to go on and achieve huge things in the property space, mate. The potential, your potential's, it's uncapped for sure. Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
It would be on Instagram, so projectproperty_.
Yeah.
I have TikTok. I just generally post the same stuff on Instagram. So Instagram, and it's me always in the DMs. I might not always see them straight away, but I generally will reply to everyone. So yeah.
Excellent. If you've enjoyed the show today, please do like, share and subscribe. It really does help. Until next time, take care.